instructor. So, of course, Facebook did not want us to be great because they knew that I was about to come with some real good stuff. They knew that I was about to come with some real good stuff. And so, of course, they didn't want us to be great. Now, I don't want y'all to get worried. I can definitely teach this because I actually had, I did show Aniqua how to do the technique first. The main reason that I did want her to teach is because she is a really, really good teacher. And I knew that she would do a really, really good job. But I tend to be the type that is just like, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I am not perfect. Good is good enough for me. I am not stuck on, oh, it has to be perfect. That is one of the reasons that measuring tape was not on your supply list, because I don't use measuring tape. I kind of just eyeball it. She did show me the importance of using measuring tape, and she showed me why measuring tape might be important in doing this. And so I did go get some measuring tape. I did just for y'all. I went and got some measuring tape. But just here's the thing. If you've been here any length of time, if this is any sign of, if you've ever been worried about doing a thing because you're scared that it's not going to work, you're scared that your technology is going to fail you, you're scared that you are going to look like a complete mess, guess what? We still do it anyway. That is the part where you make a decision, because again, it would have been very easy for me to just come up here and say, y'all know what? We canceling this. We're going to have to reschedule. We'll do it for another day. Or I can say, just teach it. Just do the thing that you said you were going to do. And that's always been my philosophy. A lot of the reason that I'm able to do a whole lot of things is because things like this, I refuse to let them be the thing that stops me, or let them be the thing that makes me say, oh, I can't do this. For a moment, I might tell myself, now after this workshop, I promise you, I'm going to be in a corner crying somewhere like, oh my gosh, why did it go that way? It was completely horrible. It was a mess. I can't believe it happened. But there's also another part of me that just says, like Katrina just said, boo, the show must go on. The technique that I want to show you guys is a really good technique. The fact that technology don't want me to be great does not take away from the fact that it's a really good technique. So I hope that y'all didn't have no plans for this wonderful Friday night, and y'all gonna rock with me. Y'all gonna rock with me on this Friday night, and we're gonna make a really cute top. Now, this is not the fabric that I wanted to use for the top because I already used this fabric. So if you haven't seen the cute top that I already made, this is the cute top that I made last night, I believe it was. So we are going to make one similar to this. I was going to use a different fabric, but, like I said, because it's kind of last minute, we're just going to go ahead and go with this fabric. So for the supplies that you're going to need for this, measuring tape, because Aniqua said that you need to use measuring tape. Yolanda did not say that you need to use measuring tape, but Aniqua said that you need to use measuring tape. So I do have measuring tape. I do have my Aleene's Fabric Fusion. You don't necessarily have to use this brand. You can use any type of fabric glue that will work. And then, as she also said, you should have some fabric scissors. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. These are not fabric scissors. These are my cut everything scissors. And so they're not gonna cut really well, but we still gonna use them, right? We still gonna use them because these are the scissors that was available to me. So we gonna use these scissors. Now, to make your top, you should have some fat. See, you see how it's already, y'all see how my scissors be cutting already? Yeah. So We not going to talk about the scissors, but you should have fabric that is cut into somewhat of a rectangle. And the measuring tape does come into play really, really well if you're trying to decide, do you want your top to be a really long top, a crop top? Like if you're trying to decide where you want your top to stop at, then you probably should use some measuring tape so that you can measure that. But again, I just cut out a triangle, and I just, the more fabric, the better. If you're trying to conserve fabric, then again, use your measuring tape so that you're cutting the exact amount of fabric that you're going to need. When I'm looking at her, not necessarily a crop top, but my doll's, her waist, even though these are her underwear, her waist tends to like really be about right here. So when she has a skirt on, the skirt will probably stop probably about right here. So I am going to want my top to come that far down. So I am going to cut off this excess fabric. Like I said, my scissors are not the greatest, so just bear with me with the scissors. But I am going to cut off the excess here. And I hope that everything is in the frame so that you guys can see. Again, if you have good fabric scissors, that's like, if you have witness protection fabric scissors, then you're probably going to cut like a really nice straight line and it's going to be really pretty. But if you got everything scissors like I do, then just know that you got everything scissors and that it's not going to cut as clean. But these scissors, they work. They still cutting. It's just not a clean cut. As clean as I would like it to be. But that's okay. We just want to cut off that excess. And then again, now, as Anika said, it's better to work this on the wrong side. So you want to turn it to, you want to turn right side to right side, because it's better to work on the wrong side for this. So go ahead and turn it right side to right side. I would also recommend, if you have an iron, to kind of make sure your fabric is as wrinkle free as possible. I'm trying to see something. I probably can just, this particular fabric already has like this crease in it from where it was already folded. I'm going to stick with that crease. But if I didn't want to stick with that crease, like I said, you would just make sure that your fabric is as wrinkle free as possible. And so if I'm going to stick with that, I'm going to have to cut off this excess again. So give me just a second. Let me just cut it off. The goal here, like I said, is to kind of just have a rectangle to start. Now, here's the cool thing. If you was watching Anika's first video, you know that her doll had the head already attached. And so she was going to have to show you guys something slightly different because the head was already attached. This technique works best if you don't have your doll's head attached. Now, here's a little thing that I will tell you. For my designs, because they are kind of a little bit snatched, they don't eat a whole lot of cookies and things like that, and they're really skinny. Depending on how wide you make your neck hole, you may be able to slide your top on from bottom up. Even if your doll's head is attached, if you're working from a My Pretty Brown Doll design, the classic ballerina, the Camille, the ponytails, anything except but the curvy doll, you depending on how wide you make your neck hole, you will be able to slide your top on from bottom up. Again, it is easier to work if your doll does not have the head attached. So I would say that if you are going to use this technique, it is best to do it without the head being attached. But if you find that you already have a doll and the head is attached, if it is a My Pretty Brown Doll design or a design that does not have like a fat bottom, you can cut the neck hole wide enough that you would be able to slide the top on from bottom up. And so like you could do like a boat neck or off the shoulder top, and that way you can slide the top on from the bottom up. But if your head is not attached and you decide that you want your design to not have like a wide neckline, like you just want just a simple little space for the neck to go through, then as Aniqua showed you guys in the first video that she was doing, what you're gonna do is just take a marker, and let's see, thankfully I have one here. And this is one of the reasons why we are working on the wrong side, because unless you're using like a fabric pencil or something that can easily wipe off the fabric, then you want to, of course, mark on the wrong side of the fabric. And so you're just going to kind of line that up with her neck and where you want your neckline to be. And again, this is deciding if you're going to have a boat neck, if you're going to have an off the shoulder. So like you could cut one shoulder a little bit wider than the other. If you wanted it to kind of come off the shoulder here, if you wanted it to come off both shoulders, then you would kind of mark it where your shoulders are at. And then if you just wanted it to be like a simple, like little sweet, little sweetheart neckline, then you would just mark that accordingly. And so I am going to go ahead and mark. Again, I'm just doing a real, nothing too fancy here. We're just going to do a real simple neckline for this to fit through. So I'll mark there, and I'll mark here. And then as Aniqua showed, we're going to do a real simple half moon. I like to call it a half moon. I don't know if it's really a half moon, but basically you are just cutting from mark to mark, and you give it a real, again, you can decide how deep your swoop is or how deep your neckline is going to go. I kind of just cut and then kind of really just go straight across to the next mark and then just come up, because I don't want this particular one, I don't want her to have a really deep neckline. But again, if you wanted it to be really deep, this is what's going to decide that. How you cut this is going to decide how deep your neckline is going to be. And real simple. Now you have a little neck hole, and now you can kind of just fit that onto the doll and just see what that looks like. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to, and I'm sorry, my little model, she got thread string hanging everywhere. So now we are going to kind of decide how her top is going to lay as far as the sides. And so because you are not sewing the sides and you're going to glue the sides, the important thing here is to make sure that you leave yourself enough room to glue. Like my first thought, the very first time that I did this, was to like do it as close to the doll's body as possible. And then I cut it like this. And then I was like, well, what are you gonna, like, how are you gonna seam that, ma'am? Because you cut it, like I cut it really, really close to her body. And so I wasted fabric immediately. And then I learned that I needed to leave enough room to be able to actually have, like, create the seams and to be able to sew that down. So you can make this really tight and cut it kind of close. It's, like I said, with still enough room to sew it down or glue it down, because this is no sew. Or if you wanted it to be like where she had more room and it was really loose, then you would mark it kind of further out. But it's real simple. You're just going to take it and take your marker and just mark where you need to cut for her sides. And like I said, you don't want, if you want this to be like this, don't cut it here, because you're not going to have enough room to actually glue that. So don't do this and then mark it and then cut it all the way up here, because there's going to be nothing to glue and you're going to be mad because you're going to be like, oh, wait, how am I supposed to put this on her body? So I do want it kind of fitted. And so what I'm going to do is mark it. And see, Anika will probably like measure this for y'all and tell y'all exactly where to mark it at. This is where, yeah, I need you to just look at it and decide. Like, use your finger or something and just be like, look, that looks like enough room for me to be able to still put this top on and to glue it. And so it looks like I'm going to be marking and then take into account where her arms are as well, because you don't want to cut all the way up to her arms. And so I'm just going to mark it right there. So we're going to cut that right there for that side. And then I'm going to come over and do the same thing for this side. And you do want to make sure that your front and back fabric are as close together as possible and that it's as smooth as possible so that you're getting nice even edges on both sides. And again, Anika will probably measure this for y'all and tell y'all exactly where to measure it. Yolanda eyeballs it and looks at it and looks at where I kind of want that seam to be, and then I just mark it. So we have those marks. The other thing, if you wanted to flip her over, look, Coletta, thank you. Yes, about 2 finger inches. Listen, what Coletta just said. Y'all are gonna do 2 fingers wide. That's what you're gonna do. 2 fingers wide. I like that. Yeah, either 2 or 1, whatever works, depending on how fat your fingers are. Now, here's the thing. If you wanted to flip this over on the other side and mark it on the other side, you certainly can. Again, she does not. What I do with it still laying here on the doll, I'm just going to make one small little cut where that is. I'm just going to make a real simple cut just so I'll know where to cut at. And same thing on this side. I'm just going to make a real simple cut just so I know where to cut at. Now for my sewing people, like if you actually do sew, y'all probably already can see where this is going. If you sew, you probably already see where this is going. Now if you don't sew, like if you don't sew at all, then you probably like, child, I don't know what she doing. So we got that cut and I'm going to finish it. Like I'm going to finish it off. I'm going to cut it all the way. But first, I want to take note of these sleeves. Now, she is not going to have a long sleeve shirt, so I'm probably going to end up cutting some of this off as well. But the first thing, again, that I want to take note of is how much room do I need to be able to seam the bottom of this as well. And so I am just taking note of where I cut it up here. And we're going to flip her just a little bit. And again, if we're using Coletta's measuring tool, this is probably only 1 finger wide. If we're using Coletta's measuring tool, we're gonna, instead of 2, we just need about maybe, or again, depending on how fat your fingers are, you might need to. If you got little skinny fingers like me, you might need 2 fingers for this to make sure that you have enough room to glue it. But again, all I'm gonna do is just make a small cut so that I know where to cut this at. And so we'll just do that on that side, and then we'll bring it over here and do it on this side as well. And again, if we're using, because I like Coletta's measuring tool, so if we're using her measuring tool, you can either do 1 finger or 2. I think 2 will give you, like 2 is safe. Instead of 1, 2 is definitely safe, because 2 is saying, even if I mess this up, I still got a little bit of room to play with. And so we do the same thing on this side, and then I can take this off and actually cut it for real. So I can take this off, I'll line it back up, and we'll make these cuts for real. Does that make sense to everybody? Do y'all see what's happening? Or y'all just like, child, what is really going on? Like, how's this gonna turn into a top? Just stay with me. I promise you, it's gonna be a top. Just stay with me. Stay with me, and you're gonna see the top happen. And so we're gonna cut on this side as well. And so this is, like I said, the sleeve part. And again, if you're just joining, my scissors are complete trash. And so they're not fabric scissors. Had I known that I was gonna teach it, I would have went and bought some brand new scissors. But we still gonna make it work. We still gonna make it work. Okay, so that's one side. That's one side. And again, my sleeve is not gonna be this long. I am gonna cut this sleeve a little bit because I don't want that sleeve that long. And now we'll cut the other side, and we'll just go up the side. Now again, this is probably where your measuring tape would help, because you'll know exactly how many inches to come up. But yeah. And then cut this side, the sleeve part. And cut. And have good fabric scissors. Now this is gonna make me go buy scissors tomorrow. I'll go buy scissors tomorrow. Okay, so as we can see, one sleeve definitely looks longer than the other, and so we'll have to fix that. Now I will measure just to see how long this sleeve is compared to the other one, so that I'll know, because I actually like this sleeve. So this one looks like it is about 7 inches, and this one is like 9. So we're gonna cut like 2 inches off, right? If I cut about 2 inches off, would that be right? Hold on, because here's my other trick. I just fold it in half and look at it and see. Like if I fold this in half and line that up, yeah. See, that's my other trick to get my sleeves the same size. So now I can see that this one, I can cut it about right here. Now here's the thing, the reason why I'm not like super worried about it is because of course I still have to seam the sleeves as well. But so that y'all can get an idea of what that looks like, this is kind of her shirt situation. This is what her shirt is gonna look like. Do y'all see that? And so we're gonna put it on her neck, right? We're gonna seam the sides here. So we'll seam here, we'll seam here, or glue. When I say seam, I mean glue. So we'll glue here, we'll glue here, we'll glue here, and we'll glue down the other side. Does that make sense? Can y'all see the shirt happening? Yay? No? Maybe? Not really? Okay, so now here comes the fun part. Now here's the thing with the glue. When you're gluing it, like I said, I use just this Fabric Fusion glue. They have a quick drying one, and I have the quick dry, but it's like not in a place where I can get it. If you're just using the regular one that dries regular, you are gonna have to let this dry. I suggest letting it dry overnight, at least like 12, 14 hours, just to be sure. Now the thing about this, it does dry clear, it dries flexible, it can be washed and all of those things once it dries, but it takes a really long time to dry. And if you are trying to do something and you need it done quickly, then this would not be the way to go. The quick dry, you still need about, I would say, at least an hour, even for the quick dry one. So again, if you're gonna use this, just know that this is not something that you can do like in 30 minutes and then think that it's gonna be ready to put on your doll. So just keep that in mind. And so again, to glue it, we are just going to do side, 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 and side. Now, the important thing is, because I want all, like for her top, I want all her seams hidden or all the edges hidden. You do need to make sure that you don't glue down the corners, because you are going to come back and, you know, fold it up at the bottom and on the edges. So just make sure that you don't glue down the corners, because it's harder for you to fold up if the edges are, or rather if the corners are glued down. So do not glue down your corners. Okay? All right. So now the way I use this, I use the glue to, because this glue comes out not as fast as E6000. Stitch Witchery Fusion Tape will work great with this technique. Needs a super hot iron. Okay. Thank you, Coletta, for that. So if you are, I'm not familiar with Stitch Witchery, but if you are, and I have seen Fusion Tape and I've thought about using Fusion Tape before, I've always, okay, so this is the one time when I feel like Aniqua in the store, when I see the Fusion Tape, I don't trust it. I'll be like, oh, that's tape. That tape ain't gonna stay. And so I've stayed away from tape because my fear is that the tape is not gonna stay. With the Fabric Fusion, and I've used different brands of this, I just tend to like this brand the best. But every brand of fabric glue that I've used has worked well. I have not had any issues with it. I have not had anybody tell me they've had issues with it. And so I'm not going to say don't use the Stitch Witchery Fusion Tape. I'm just saying I don't trust it because it's tape and it just sounds like it may not work. Like glue just sounds like a stronger word to me than tape. I'm just like, if I glued it, the glue is going to stay. If I tape it, that tape might not stay. That's how I think about it. So, but again, I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm just saying I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Okay, so again, like I said, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and glue down these edges, trying not to glue down the corners. So we don't want to glue down the corners. And again, we are still working with the right side to right side on this. So this should still be turned inside out with your right sides together. And I just take the glue and I squeeze a little bit out. And like I said, it sometimes comes out like, yeah, see how it comes out like E6000, where it just puts a big glob of it. And I just take the little thing and I just spread the glob, because you don't want to use a whole bunch of glue. And so I just kind of spread the glob with the tip of it. That's probably not how this should be done. Like, to be honest, you probably shouldn't do it this way. But it works for me. And then again, like I said, be careful to not glue down your edges or your corners, because you don't want to glue down your corners yet. Now, because my scissors are trash, I see now that this is uneven, but it's okay. We still gonna make it work, because I see now that my two sides are not completely even, but they are glued together. Yeah, they are glued together. Okay, so that's one side, and again, I just press it. Now, if you have your what are these things called? Your clothespins. You could take a clothespin and just put the clothespin there to kind of just help it stay together. Now, the other point, or the other thing you should know about using the clothespins and things like this, if you have glue that kind of squeezed out a little bit, just note that it might stick to the clothespin and that it might be a little harder to get off. So just be aware of that, that the clothespin will stick. Like, this glue really works, and your clothespin might stick to the glue. So just when you're taking it apart, just be aware of that. Now, see, like I said, because my seams are not complete together, I have to be mindful of that and mindful of where I'm putting this glue to make sure that this is gonna stay. All right, but we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. And again, we just want to make sure that we don't do the corner, because we're gonna come back and lift those corners up. Okay, And like I said, you don't need a whole lot of glue, but you need some glue. Like, and again, I just want to make sure that that's, yeah. Okay. So we got that side glued as well. And again, I'm just taking, now y'all know my clothespins is old. Like, these are clothespins that I've actually like had on the clothesline. Like, yeah. Don't ask me how many years I've had these clothespins. If you can't tell, it's been years and years and years. Like, these clothespins have seen a mighty lot of clothes. They seen a mighty lot of clothes. They like, boo. I remember when she was a size 10. Yeah, these was clothespins that I had when I was still a size 10. So they've been around for a good little while. And then again, we're going to do the same thing for the sleeves. Again, making sure that we don't glue the corners, because we are going to fold the corners up, or the inside of them up. And so, again, just taking the glue, and again, this may not be the best way to do this, but it's the easiest way for me to do it, is to just let it come out and then just kind of spread it, because sometimes it will give you way more glue than what you want to have. And again, I'm just going to press that down. And then we'll just do the other side. Now, as far as the collar, so I normally do the collar last. Like, I normally wait until the rest of my shirt is dry, and then I do the collar last, only because it's like supposed to be like this half moon or this circle. I may have to snip the corners of it to make sure that it lays all the way down. And so I actually put the top back on the doll and kind of make sure that it looks the way that I want it to look, that I don't have to cut anything else, and then I go back in and do the collar. But you would do the exact same thing for the collar. You're just going to add the glue, fold it down, all the way around. So you're doing the exact same thing for the collar as well. And then, but let's get this other side of her sleeve. And you can put a clothespin here as well if you want a clothespin on that side. Make sure that you are working in a place that you don't mind getting like excess glue. So don't do this on your coffee table or your dining room table. If it's like, you know, a place where you don't want excess glue to be, don't do it on top of other fabric. I'm speaking from experience. I have glued fabric to fabric that it shouldn't have been glued to because I was like, oh, I'm just going to work on this fabric right here. And then the next thing I know, I done glued my shirt down to another piece of fabric. I was like, man, what are you doing with your life? Like, what are you doing with your life? And so again, other sleeve, and we are just going to press that down. And here's the thing, like I said, because this is not the quick dry, we got to give this time to dry. And I let it dry before I even like fold up these edges. Like, I want this dry. So, well, hey, LaShonda, and thanks for bringing cupcakes. And so I let this dry, and then basically what I'm going to do is, so we'll fold these in this way. So her sleeves, we'll just fold them in, and then we'll glue. So we'll fold that like that, and then glue them. And the same thing on the other side. And then here at the bottom, we'll fold that as well, so that you guys can see again on this top. So on the top that I made, you can see here that it's, you see, so that you can't see the frayed edges. And the same thing with her sleeve. That sleeve is just folded, and then I don't even think I actually put glue on that one. So it's just folded that way. Now here's the thing. So for other variations of this top, while we let that dry, you can Where is my fabric? So as I was saying before, with that rectangle triangle situation, depending on how long or short you make it, that top can be belted if you wanted it belted. It could not have sleeves. So if you didn't want the top to have sleeves, you could cut all the way here. Like you could cut that off and just seam the sides there and fold those sides in. And so if you didn't want it, like if you just wanted it to be like a sleeveless top, you could definitely cut this, like you could make it so that it didn't have sleeves and you would just seam that whole section. But like I said, if you wanted it to be longer and you wanted it to like almost be like a peplum type top, it would be the exact same thing. You're just gonna have more material hanging like from the bottom here. And so instead of cutting it up here, you would let this hang a little bit lower. And then again, like I said, if you wanted it to be like a boat neck or off the shoulder, that's going to be determined by where you place the stitches or where you place your markings to cut it for the neck hole. And so if I were to make that neck hole larger, this top would then become an off the shoulder top. Now, when we do the skirt, I will show you guys how that skirt can also become a top, and how you can use the skirt to become a top. I don't know if Aniqua's going to teach the skirt or if I'm going to teach the skirt. We'll see what technology wants us to do. But the shirt is really, really simple. Like, seriously, once you get the hang of, like, it's really, you're just cutting out a T almost. Like, it's just a T. So you cut out like the letter T. So you have your middle part and then the T part. And then you're just gluing the sides together. It's really, like, it's not hard at all. And the reason that this will work for any doll design is because regardless of what doll you're using this on, the technique is the same. So whether you're using My Kind of Thing design, if you're using a Touch of Blue design, if you're using a Christian Crochet Addict design, if you're using like somebody, you know, just it could work for your Barbie doll. It could work for God forbid you got an American Girl. No, I'm just playing. It could work for an American Girl doll. The idea behind it is the same. You would just take your fabric and just figure out, where's my neck hole going to be? Like, the neck hole is the most important part. Once you determine where your neck hole is going to be, the rest of it is just seaming and figuring out, do I want sleeves? Do I not want sleeves? How long do I want it? Do I want it to be a crop top, a short top, whatever the case may be? Be mindful of the fabric that you're using and what direction you want the print on the fabric to be, because it will look different depending on how you cut the fabric. I know that sounds crazy, but it really will. I've used Kente cloth twice for doll tops, and they looked like totally different tops simply because of how I cut the fabric and which direction I cut the fabric. So I always, when I'm looking at it, I always make sure that it's on the right side when I'm looking at it initially, and then before I start cutting, that's when I turn it to the wrong side. So before, like when I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide, well, how is this going to look on the doll? I always make sure that I can see the fabric and see the print and see how that's going to lay. And then I turn it to the wrong side when I actually get ready to cut it. Because it will, like I said, if it's a printed fabric, it will change the way it looks if you cut it a different way. So just to give you an example, see, that looks different if I cut it going this way versus cutting it going this way. Do y'all see how that looks different? How that will give me the shirt looks like a totally different style shirt depending on which way I cut the fabric. For some reason, that looks really, really busy to me, and I would not want all those flowers on her. Now, again, she still has a whole bunch of flowers on her going this way, but when I cut it this way, it doesn't look as busy. It doesn't look like the flowers are overbearing or overtaking her. And so just keep that in mind when you're cutting the fabric. I hope this was helpful, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. I will be adding some other videos, like I will show you how I do the peplum top, but that's going to be a recorded video because this needs to dry, and because I really don't want to keep cutting up my pretty flower fabric. Like, I don't want to keep cutting up my pretty flower fabric. So I'm going to have to find some fabric that I don't mind cutting up. And I will show you guys how I do the peplum. But again, for this top, all you have to do now is once this is dry, you are going to fold it at the bottom so that you don't see the frayed edge at the bottom. And you're just going to take your fabric glue and just put a line of fabric glue here at the bottom and fold that at the bottom. And then the same thing here with your sleeves. You're just going to turn those in, put some fabric glue here and fold those, and then let it dry. It does need time to dry. And I can't wait to see what you guys make. I'm looking forward to seeing your tops. It's a simple technique, like I said, that will work with for the most part, any doll design. I can't imagine a doll that it wouldn't work for, because again, once you cut that neck hole, it's pretty simple from there. And if you are working with this type of design, you should be able, if you cut this neck hole wide enough, you should be able to slide the top up over her legs and then put the top on that way. So if you're thinking, oh, well, my doll already has a head, and so I'm not going to be able to do it, you certainly can. She's just going to have to wear like a boat neck top or a off the shoulder top, if her head is already attached, if it's my design. Now, if you're doing one of those fat babies, or as Anika, fat bottom babies, it's not going to work. Those definitely need to be done with the head not attached, unless you are willing to cut a seam. So here's the thing. If you have a fat bottom baby, you can cut the seam up the back and then glue it back while it's on the doll. I do not recommend it. I do not recommend it. It certainly can be done. So instead of, you would literally cut this down the middle so that you can then put the coat on like it's a jacket, and then you would just glue that back together. And so she would have a seam down the back, but understand that you're going to have to glue it back together on the doll. Does that make sense? So if it is a what I call a fat bottom baby, or what Anika calls a fat bottom baby, and her head is already attached, you can still do this. You would just cut a seam down the center of her back and then glue that seam back together on the doll. So you would put it on like it's a jacket, and then you can glue it. That's where the snaps came in. If you know how to use the snap machine, you could actually create snaps for it and just snap it closed. I have the little snap tool. I don't like the snap tool, but I do have it. And so if you wanted to create snaps, you certainly could. I would just say cut it and then just glue it back, and just have a seam going down the back. Because most dolls, you're not looking at the back of the doll most of the time. But there wouldn't be anything wrong with having it with the seam down the back. All right, you guys, thank you for rocking with me. I will see you next Friday. It'll either be me or Anika. One of us will be teaching the skirt. The cool thing about the skirt, like I said, is we'll be doing a lot more with the skirt. So the skirt, we'll show you how to make the skirt. We'll show you how that skirt can also become a top. I'll show you how the skirt can be like a high-low skirt, because the skirt has a whole lot more variations. And the skirt doesn't require as much cutting or as much gluing. The skirt is like pretty straightforward. And so the skirt, we'll be doing a few different skirts. Like I said, like a high-low, a regular skirt, and then we'll be showing you how you can use the skirt as a top as well. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you, Coletta. Thank you, everybody who joined and stuck with me. Again, my apologies for the technical difficulties. As always, though, we push through. We push through. These are not going to be the things that stop me. They will be the things that make me keep going. And so I cannot wait to see the tops that you make. Share them here. Share them here. And then we'll see you Friday the 13th. That should be a whole